The purpose of this video is to introduce learners or newbies or somebody that's just getting started with Isaac Sim to the general interface and some keyboard shortcuts. When I started learning Isaac Sim 2, I had a little bit of difficulty in some maybe basic things of interface that I expected there are things I should not have issues with, and some of them I even still have issues with till date. So it takes a bit of time to get used to those interfaces. So this video is an attempt to help us. And most of the things I'm going to be sharing, we can also find it on this website. We have a very good documentation for the Isaac Sim. So I'm going to just be switching between this interface, this documentation when I get to the keyboard part and the Isaac Sim. So once you open your Isaac Sim through whatever means, this is what you have. You have this stage. We call it the stage. So we call everything the stage. I mean, if you even want to create a new file, it's going to create that new file you are creating is a stage on its own, and it's usually going to be saved as a USD. It saves as a USD. That's the default. So, but as we have that now for this stage, but usually I I also we also call this place, this particular right hand side with where we have the trees and the S forms, we also call it stage. So for me personally, what I would do is we call this particular place where we see all our assets that we are using, our robot, our environment. I call it the stage, or it is the stage. And this particular window that we see that is going to be the environment where our robot is going to be operating physically. The simulation environment itself is, you can call it the viewport, and that's what we have over here. So in short, that is just the first thing I want us to know. So anytime you open Isaac Sim, this is what you have. And we have some commands here for select, for move, for rotate, which we are going to be going through. So there are different methods or ways we can use to bring in an asset or shapes or robots into Isaac Sim. So we first of all want to create us some simple shapes. So from over this particular stage, if I'm right click, I click on stage, I have mesh and I have shape. So shapes and mesh, they're almost similar. They're brothers and sisters, but shape are just your primitive shapes like cones, cubes, cylinders, and meshes can also share the same shapes, but they are more complex shapes. Usually, they are more complex shapes. Usually, so it takes a bit of processing for Isaac Sim when you use it for simulation. When you have a robotic arm, that particular arm is a mesh. Maybe you bring it from some CAD file and things like that. It's not a simple shape like triangle or rectangle. So usually, if you just want to experiment and see how it's going to collide and those kind of things, just use a shape. So we are going to be creating a simple shape, and we call it a cube. And we have this cube now, and that is the cube. And usually, we have the play button here that you can use to simulate and see how it's going to behave. If you just click on this play, it doesn't move. And it's a physics engine that is supposed to move. Why does it not move? Because it is just as if it is in the space, there's no gravity, it doesn't understand anything at the moment. So what we are going to do is we are going to create an environment for it that allows it to understand physics. So under physics, I can use a physics scene. The moment I use a physics scene, I have it here. I always like to bring my physics scene into environment. So that is one thing. Every item you have here, you can move them around. So I bring it to environments, keep prime transform. I'm supposed to have this, but that's okay. Now, if I click on play, I still have the same thing. So again, I'm just going to be navigating different aspects of things. So let us come to physics again. And we have a ground plane. So now we are saying that, oh, we want to have a floor. So, and if I click on play now, we still have the same thing. Why? Because this shape is just a shape at the moment. It is nothing. It's just a shape. We are not recognizing it as a rigid body that can move, that can obey gravity and something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on cube and I'm going to add a rigid body I'm going to say that, okay, I want this shape to be a rigid body. So if I click on rigid body, now it can move. We have rigid body and rigid body with colliders preset. I'm going to tell us the difference. So usually we just click on rigid body with colliders presets. And once I do that, I click on play. And if I bring it up, and you can see now it can come and stop. If I stop this, and if I decide to create another shape or another object now, there are different methods of creating object. I can do it from the stage here. I can do it from the viewport here. If I do it from here, and I decide to add a second cylinder, I like to bring my ground plane to environment. So if I do that, and remember this cylinder, it is just there, it's not yet a rigid body. If I click on play, let us do this. Let us move the cube up first, and we click on play. You can see the cylinder doesn't fall now because it is not yet a rigid body. And if I call it a rigid body now, I'm going to add, and if I add it and I call it just a rigid body without collider preset, you can see when it falls, it just falls. It doesn't understand collision. So that is why it doesn't fall to the ground plane here. So that is one thing about that. And usually, I know I have this physics thing in, but we can leave that for now. So as I was saying, we now have two objects now. We have the cube that is floating, and we have the cylinder. One is a rigid body with colliders presets, and this one doesn't understand it. So let's assume you've made a mistake and you've selected rigid body. You can also still add collision, and you just come to add, and you come to physics and add physics, and there is collider presets. And now if you click on play, it is going to understand collision. So that is one thing. So we can add cube, we can have the cylinder, you can add all those kind of stuff. You can add another shape. So for these bodies now, we can quickly do a little bit of. So if we click on cylinder now, you can see it's going to select it, and you can see your transforms. So if you click on cube, you can see same thing. So for the coordinate transform that we can see now, it allows you to be able to move it in whatever direction you want it to go. So, but one thing you need to take note is how it is going to move, or how you interact with it is dependent on whether move is selected, rotate is selected, scale is selected, or whatever you may have. What I mean now is, let's do something like this. And I have my cylinder and this guy. So if I'm selecting move now and I click on cylinder over here, I can move it up and down, up and down. So if this is where I want to be, and you can see the translate, which is the position on this environment is going to be changing as I move it. As I move it, it is going to be changing, and I can move it in other direction. You can see we can move it and interact it with it anyhow we like. And if I just want to position it on the floor, and I don't want to move it because it's not less is maybe a little bit difficult, I'm going to come to X over here inside this what they call it, text box. I'm going to click on Control and come inside and put 0 there, and I'm going to come to Y and put 0, and I'm going to come to Z and I put 0. So now you're not going to see it fall because it's going to see it as the middle point of the object. So what I can do now is this size of this guy is 1, and I can just say that I want it to be 0.5, and you can see it's just sitting on the floor, and that is what we have at the moment now. And I can still move it around because I'm not moving it in the Z direction. We can see the Z has not changed. And if you want to scale it, you can decide to scale. You can change the orientation. One thing to take note of is if you just click on this without pressing Control, it's not going to allow you to do that. So you need to press Ctrl and left click, and you can be able to edit it. One thing I need to also take note is you can, without selecting, you can take your mouse to this text box and just use it to move. And once you move your mouse, it is going to change like that. So if you really want to edit it, you need to press Ctrl left click. Same thing for the Y. You can move it like that. So if I want to work on cube now, I can select cube and I can move XY, and I can bring down, and if I click on play, they just fall a little bit. So this is good. We are happy. We can add other shapes if we want. So we've just talked about move now. Move up, down. So if I want to rotate now, I cannot do rotation currently. So what I need to do is I click on rotate here, and now I can rotate as I want. Now I can rotate, and we can see now that the orientation in the transform here also changes, and we can rotate as we want. And if we click on, there's also a good one, which is scale, and it allows you to, and if you just hold on to it, it is going to scale it in that particular axis that you select. So I'm just going to bring it back to 1 and press enter. Now that is just about that. So one thing is, if I also want to bring focus to a particular shape or a particular frame, each of these are frames. So a particular frame, the cube, the cylinder, I select cube and I can press F. Once I do F, it's going to bring focus to the cube. And if I press cylinder, if I'm selecting cylinder, I press F, it brings focus to the cylinder. So that's an easy way to work and navigate, especially when you have a big robot or you have an environment and there is something you really want to see what is happening there. So that is just that about that. So what I'm going to now do is we've understood this basic keyboard. I'm still going to talk more on some keyboard, but now let us hold it at the tip of our finger that we have F, we have Control, left click, left mouse button to actually change the positions that we have over here. So let us hold that. There are a couple of stores again that okay, let's leave this for now. So like I said, there are different ways you can add stores to your stage. You can add it from here, the first place. You can add it from here, the second place. And you can add it to this place, the third place. The thing is, the place that you have activated is where it is going to go to. What I mean is, I have this cylinder here now. You can see that's what I'm selecting. And if I click on select and if I decide to create a sphere, you can see it comes to under this place. But let's assume I don't want this sphere, I delete it, and I have my mouse selected over here, and I come to create, and I decide to create a cone. It comes to shape because it knows that what's it called? Because it knows that a cone is not an environment. But in the case that you have multiple, it's going to get confused and go to the one that you have last activated. Let's assume you have multiple robots and you create a shape. That's where it's going to go to. But let's delete this cone for now. What I want to do now is to talk about some assets that you have in Isaac, Isaac Sim. So to talk about the assets, I'm going to come to browsers. I'm going to come to Isaac Sim assets. These are assets that you can work with. Usually, if you are clicking this for the first time, or you are opening Isaac Sim for the first time, I mean, even every time you open your Isaac Sim, usually it downloads this. It is pulling it from S3 AWS server, so you can actually bring different kind of assets to use. Usually many stuff you want to work with are here already for many companies, and they kept on updating and adding more and more assets to this environment, to this robot and different kind of places. So it is a one-stop place that you can come to work with, but at the same time, you can bring in your assets. If you have your URDF file, you have some mesh file and those kind of things, you can bring it in. So what I'm going to do now is we want to first of all bring in an environment asset, which means we want to, let's assume we have a simple warehouse. So if we have a simple warehouse, we can decide to use which one should we use? Click on this guy and use this full warehouse because it's a bit of heavy file. And if I bring it on the world, it takes a bit of seconds before it gets there because it's more heavy, it's heavier. This is like almost 7 MB. Okay, so it takes a bit of while for you to get inside, and once literally it won't allow you to do anything while you do it. Good. So we just have to wait. Now we have our full warehouse, and it looks like I loaded it twice, so I'm just going to delete one of them, and I like to bring it under my environment. So it takes a bit of time too. Now that I have my full warehouse, and like I was explaining, you can see we have different frames, we have different things inside. You can just use your mouse to roll and to see. So what if I come to my full warehouse, and if I want to see, let's assume I want to see, let's look for something good to see. This particular guy, you can see that's the forklift body. Good. And if I press F now, it's going to just make it the focus. And if I want to see something as the palette, now I don't know where it is. I press F and it takes me to the palette. Good, good, good. And if I want to see the cube or cylinder again, I press F and now I have it. Good, 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 good. So now that you have this, we can also bring in robots too. So it depends on the robots you want to use. We can come under robots now, and let us use which robot should we use? Let us use agility robots. Good. And let us use digits, and we bring it under word, and we have the digits. It's sitting here. And see it's not a good place. What I can do now is, because it's selected and I have it move, but I can't see the coordinate transform. So what I can do is I can just translate it, and it's going to translate this robot now. And unfortunately, because it needs to be actuated properly for it to stand, if I just click on play, yeah, it's likely okay. Can see it's likely going to fall. Yes, now it falls. Good, as expected. So we have these robots. We can bring in other robots too, but we can bring in other robots too. Usually what's one thing I can do is to also come to create again, and under Isaac here we have some robots that they think, I'm not sure why they do that, but they place some robots here that are not even part of the asset. So I can just do create and physics, Isaac, I mean, robots, and I can add Nova Kata with sensors. And it's also a bit heavy, and you can see where it is sitting. I can decide to move the cube for the Nova Kata in this case. And good, 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 good. So now we want to talk on some other aspect of navigation. So if I hold my right mouse button, I mean we have the WASD keyboard. So if I just hold it, and maybe it's people that are used to gaming and they will be used to this, and if I right click and I press W, you can see that is what happens. And if you check the documentation, that is exactly what they say. It allows you to move forward. So if and WSAD, And if you do S, it moves backward. A move to the left and D move to the right. So let us demonstrate that. For you to demonstrate that, if I want to move to the right, I'm going to do D and I hold my right mouse button and you can see how I can move smoothly. I can move smoothly and see what is happening. If I do A again, it takes me to the left. And if I do S, it takes me backward. And that is that on that. And if you just hold on to your right mouse button and you just move your mouse around, you can use it to move the camera around. And that's what we have somewhere here. Where is it? Right mouse button holding. So it's going to pivot the camera. So that is what it's going to do. So now we know the WASD. So if you do the Q now, RMB plus Q, what it's going to do is, you can see it moves up and down. I believe so. Up and down. So Q moves up and down. You want to see what is happening in the ceiling, you want to see what is here exactly, you click on this guy and you can press F. Now you can be able to see those minute details and you can see the transform also. If I want to see my Nova Kata, I can select Nova Kata from here and it's not selecting it. And I can use my right mouse button and do W now to move forward. Let's see. Forward, move forward. So you can see, you just have to look at what works at each particular time, and that is what is going to determine what you use. So this is Nova Kata, and I do F, and you can see now, showing me, and I can also do right mouse button again to really see cylinder F. Now it takes me inside again, and those are just some basic things we have to know. I like to take my Nova Kata underward over here and keep from transform. So those are some things about this navigation. You can see now I can see the camera of the Nova Kata or the case instead. And right mouse button again. So it's just have to play with this guy and we get used to whatever is happening. We can get used to whatever is happening over here. WASD, Q, and E. Those are the things. So if you can actually change the speed of these movements, because as I'm holding my right mouse button and I click on W, you can see. But this is a good speed, in my own opinion. But if you want to change it, maybe you want something faster, you can say we have navigation speed 0.01, speed scaler. You can change some of these things. So another thing about some of these shortcuts is that we have different shortcuts. These are just the one that relates to the viewports and the stages. If I come to window, I believe it's window, there's hotkeys, and if I come to hotkeys, we can see now we have different shortcuts and we can create our own hotkeys. You can delete some particular shortcuts that you don't want. So that is just that on that. That is that on that. I'm not sure. I think this is just what I want to cover in this video. Keyboard shortcuts and all these navigations. And I think we've not talked about rotation. I think we talk about rotation, but if we look at this, is there any it doesn't look like there is another shortcut for rotation, but we did talk about rotation. And if you want to check it again, in this case, now that I'm selecting E, now I can still move, when I move around, this is my normal movement. And so that is fine. You can also change the stage lights. So we have different lights. You can do lights off, you can do default, you can do stage lights, you can do gray studio. So those are some. You can do camera lights. So this is just camera lights, and that's what the camera is saying. So I think I want to go back to stage lights. And I think we are good for now about the introduction, Isaac Sim assets. Yep. So in some other videos, we can look at how to combine some of these shapes and create small mobile robots, how to work with Isaac Lab and those other kind of things. Thank you and have a good rest of the day.